Hi, my name is Gina Bisignano, and I live in Beverly Hills. I'm a beautician.
We the people are not going to take it anymore. You are not going to take away our turkey bear. You are not going to take away our votes and our freedom that our men died for. This is all injustice, and we, the people, will never give up. We will never let our country go to the globalists.
The reason I'm talking to you all today is because I've literally been under a gag order for 4 years.
FBI agents raid an apartment in Beverly Hills, arresting a woman accused of storming the Capitol.
FBI agents and Beverly Hills police descended on the home of Gina Bisignano this morning at an apartment building on Palm Drive. Bisignano is now facing federal charges for her involvement in the Capitol riots on January 6th.
These are serious charges, and they could absolutely rack up in terms of seeing federal prison time.
She wrote, quote, "I was there to stop the steal," referring to the presidential election.
We don't want people to get away with these crimes, and we want to send a message that if you try to do this, if these alleged crimes, that there will be a punishment.
So it all started on January 19th when the feds surrounded my building and then they almost knocked down my front door. And I said to my friend, actually my student was sleeping on my couch, and I said, "Who is that?" And she's like, "Gina, the feds are here." And I said, "Don't open up." She said, "Gina, you have to answer. They're going to break down the door." So I answered the door, and I was in a state of shock. They surrounded me. They put me in cuffs. My friend was asking if they had a warrant. I mean, I really thought they've got the wrong person because it was so extreme. There was news crews out there. So they took me in and they asked me questions for hours, and I didn't really have any answers. It's as simple as we went to go see our president talk and speak. And I had a feeling, though, that we were, everybody was in the defeated mood. Like we just all felt really down because we know that would happen with the election. And I went there to hear my president speak. And then afterwards, I remember it rang in my ear, we're going to peacefully and patriotically take a walk over to the Capitol.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Everybody went there with all the intention of using our constitutional right of confronting a tyrannical government. When I say confronting, nobody had weapons. We were all in heavy prayer, deep prayer. We were all Christians, most of us, or Jews. And when I approached the Capitol grounds, I remember saying to myself, Lord, this might be something big. But when I looked at all the pro-life pictures around me, the mutilated baby parts, I just knew I had to take this walk. And I walked into the stairwell, and there were some guys behind me, and we were all chanting "Stop the Steal, USA." And the Capitol Police opened the doors, and they started shooting us with bear spray. So we just were reiterating that we just were there to, let our voices be heard. We want them to hear us as Americans. We don't believe this election was legit. And instead of wanting to have discussions or allowing us to express ourselves and our beliefs, they started to use force. Therefore, that created a big riot, a big fight. Nobody had any weapons, and nobody went there with the intention to fight. And during that whole calamity, there were people we were in a crowd, and we were so condensed inside the tunnel that you couldn't move. And I remember I got pushed up to the side of the wall, and I remember looking down and taking a photo and saying, I'm probably going to be in a lot of trouble for being in this area. However, I can't get out because the cops were pushing so hard on us. We were all stuck in the tunnel. A police officer came over and hit me with a bat. I fell into the crowd and I was crushed. So from there, which I found really, really odd and very suspicious, was that I witnessed so many people actually beating each other up in the crowds. And I made my way, because by then I'd been hit by a bat. by the Capitol Police, I made my way over to the window and I was able to get some air and I rested against the window. And at that point, I couldn't see. I was so gassed up from the gas and the bear spray. I remember being at that window and there was a gentleman beside me who I found out was Mike Pompeo's nephew. He actually took footage of me being assaulted by quote unquote Trump supporters in the crowd. And he took footage of me as I was being assaulted and somebody was spraying me with bear spray. I remember all of a sudden we heard they just shot and killed a girl. And the rumor was the girl was 19. She's young. She was a protester. And at that point, when I was by the window, everybody was going into the room, I think a lot out of curiosity. You know, some of them were doing some, you know, vandalization and some of them were peeing in the corner. But people were just angry and they were full of fury. And we felt, at that point, we felt very defeated. And we also felt unrightfully defeated. We felt that our election was stolen and a lot of heavy, heavy emotion. Anyway, I was in front of the window when they were saying they just shot and killed a girl. I went into the room and the gentleman told me, you know, tell the guys to come out because they just shot and killed a girl and they're going to shoot the guys. So I took the telephone and I said, look, Trump said all patriots need to leave now. And I remember the guy with a cigarette in his mouth and a gas mask, and he was breaking some furniture. And I said, look, we all have to leave. You guys need to get out of the room. Trump said all patriots need to leave now. And he said, but Trump always says stuff he doesn't mean. He doesn't mean it. I'm like, look, if we don't leave now, you're going to get shot. They just shot and killed a girl. So then a lot of guys still wouldn't listen. And I went out and I said, come on, guys, we need Americans. Come and help me. I needed people to come in and help me to get the guys out. But there was no budging them. So then, because I still couldn't see, my eyes were all clouded from the burning from the bear spray. I proceeded to try to make my way down, but at that point I knew I had to just rest because I couldn't even see. And eventually we made our way down, okay, and in the front we saw people being trampled and suffocated. And I do recall them saying that they just trampled somebody and they were trying to do CPR. So there was a lot of calamity going on around me. One of the gentlemen in the crowd gave me a megaphone.
We, the people, are not going to take it anymore. You are not going to take away our Trumpy bear. You are not going to take away our votes and our freedom that our men died for. This is 1776, and we, the people, will never give up. We will never let our country go to the globalists. George Soros, you can go to hell.
And of course I didn't bring one with me. I didn't have any intentions of using a megaphone. And we were so scared and we weren't even thinking like ourselves. I mean, I remember saying, he said, tell them we need weapons. The boys don't want to leave. Tell them we need weapons. I remember saying to myself, we need strong, angry patriots. We need gas masks. We need weapons for protection. Our boys don't want to leave.
We need America. We need Americans. Come on, guys.
Where does it go?
We need patriots. You guys, it's the win.
They said they're going to use lethal force. What did you hear?
I heard that they were, but if we're Americans, we all need to stick together. Yes, I did.
If you have a weapon, you defend yourself and your country. Oh, yeah, brother. Push back!
And the reason I said that is because we really thought at that point they were shooting us. They were killing us. One girl, we saw people being trampled in the tunnel, and another woman was shot and killed moments earlier. So, the odd thing is when the prosecutors played that video of me, I did not remember anything. And I was like, there's no way I would say something like that. And I did. So that's why January 19th, the fact that I was calling for weapons, that's why I think they used so much force on me. So they took me down to the police station. I got booked, and I remember the judge saying, I don't like that you're trying to make Miss Bisignano out to be a terrorist. As a matter of fact, you could even look into the docket and it says that. And you're trying to blame this on Donald Trump. He actually told my prosecutor, and I don't like the fact that you're trying to blame it on President Trump. So, and then the male prosecutor put my gun up on the screen, and he said that I bought a gun to January 6th. It ends up that this quote unquote friend told the feds that I actually bought a gun to Washington to use on, Joe Biden. That's not the case. That's total lie. Anyway, I remember seeing a gun and I'm saying to myself, why does he have my gun, a picture of my gun? When the feds raided my apartment, they took pictures of the gun. They were in my apartment for like 9 hours that day. My friend said that. Anyway, so I'm like, why is there a gun? And I'm like, Your Honor, I told my attorney that gun has never been fired. I bought that from a police officer. And it did pan out. The feds allowed me to keep the gun. And I'm like, it's never even been fired. The reason that I was in so much shock is because I didn't understand the overzealousness of coming to get me and coming after me. And I've never seen and I've never felt so scared, yet I was like, they definitely, I don't know why they're doing this. They have the wrong person. Anyway, so I got booked in and I remember just being so shaken up that I couldn't even breathe. I mean, I could barely breathe. They gave me bail, but it was $250,000. And I remember my sister putting her house up for me. They let me out. And I remember I had two of my friends outside, and they drove me home. And they saw the whole thing. And I went home that night. And at that point, it was on the news. And I was literally so sick and so drained that I laid on the couch. And I remember having this girl, Narosha, here, show up at my house. And I went, oh my God, she's the last person. Anyway, she surprised me and ended up being so helpful. And she had promised me she was going to help me. And she said to me, tomorrow I'll drive you to pay your bail. I went that day. She picked me up and remember we were trying to find an attorney. And I remember my attorney, the public defender, saying, Gina, I think they're going to revoke your bail. And I'm like, no. I was putting it out of my head. Like, there's no way they're going to revoke my bail. There's no way. So I went and I had a check for $20,000, and my sister was going to put up her house because my bail was $250,000. So I went back to the courthouse, and my friend Narosha drove me. It was really kind of her. And I went to go. They go, okay, well, your name's Gina, and I go, yeah. They're like, okay, put all your stuff in there. And Narosha came with me, and we went through the security belt. And I remember the guy said to me, Washington revoked your bail. That's what you get for treason. Yeah, and I'm like, treason? And two of the U.S. Marshals that worked, or they might have been deputies, they handcuffed me. And I was in a state of shock. They revoked my bail. And I didn't know what to do. I had money, I had keys, I had credit cards, and the girl, I trusted her. So I gave her my credit card, my keys, my phone, everything. I was booked in that day. I remember one of the U.S. Marshals went, treason, that's a joke. Don't worry, just get a good attorney. That's a joke. And then one of the U.S. Marshals looked at me and he said, oh my gosh, your lips are so pretty. And I felt, that was nice, and I felt like such crap. I hadn't slept. So they booked me in, and of course they had to go and check all through my body and ins and outs. And I had Lisette, she was my cellmate. I was just in a state of shock. They said I was going to be in jail for 30 years. So I went about a month of being in a total state of shock. Panic attacks, and eventually I started to calm down because I met somebody through the toilet. His name was Daniel. I met my friend Daniel through the bathroom toilet. And we would talk, and I was so vulnerable at that point and weakened. And he would say, don't worry, the Italians are going to put together money for you. He would say, and they're going to get you a good attorney. And I'm like, the Italians? He's like, yeah, your sister said the Italians were going to help you in New York. And I'm like, that's odd. So I had Daniel call my sister, Marianne. My friend Narosha was calling my family and giving her updates, but she was just kind of making them up. She ended up being a really, really bad player in this story, because she ended up, somebody told her I gave her COVID. So she told my family while I was in jail that I bought a gun to Washington, and just a lot of drama, really bad stuff. I was named in the killing of a police officer. So she was communicating that to my family, and my sister Marianne was communicating to Daniel, and Daniel was trying to get it to me through the phone. Finally, I was able to talk to my sister, and she would say, I can't really discuss what they're charging you with. I can't talk right now, but in the long, it ended up that Narosha was giving her false information. This so-called friend even met with the feds, made them a big spread, and made up all these lies. And so the feds went down on me stronger. I think I got 11 indictments. Moving on. So I was in the jail, and there was a transgender girl that was there, and she would say hi to me. Her name was Nobody. And I would put letters under the door, and she would call my sister and give her information. And then she would come back with a number that was my brother's, and I would be able to talk to my brother. She would talk to my brother, and I was devastated. And she'd say, girl, you're not devastated. You're happy. You're having a great day. The sun is shining. You're having a great day. That wasn't so. There was one time when the girl in my cell, she had her monthly cycle, and she just went off on me. And I asked her to please stop singing. She was singing all night, and I couldn't sleep. And she flipped out on me, and I said, Lisette, you're just having your monthly cycle. I'm not going to listen. I'm just going to sit here until you calm down. Eventually, she did calm down. But it was nice having her, because she did help me to get in touch with Daniel. We would have notes going through the toilet. I remember it was my birthday, and I started to feel like I had to get used to it. I was like, I need to get used to this, because I'm going to be here for a long time. And I remember that night they took us out of solitary confinement. I had been there for almost a month because of COVID. And we were able to have a cell and go to the gym. I remember that night. It was my first night in the new cell. I received a letter, and the letter said, I am your attorney, Chuck Peruto.
Charles Peruto Jr. is officially running for Philadelphia District Attorney.
If you don't believe punishment is a deterrent to crime, then leave, because you're stupid.
Did you kill Julia Law?
I didn't kill her, and neither did anybody else.
I understand black people just about as well as a black person.
And the letter said, I am your attorney, Chuck Peruto. Your family hired me. If you don't want to attain me, let me know now. 3 things. If you had weapons on you, you're in a lot of trouble. If you broke anything, you're in even more trouble. If you hurt anyone, you're in a lot of trouble. All I want to do is reiterate to you that I need nothing but the truth. I'm here to help you. And at this point, we're going to have to work on a plea deal. So that's what I remember him saying. You're going to be the first one to get a plea deal. I had no idea at that point. After that, I felt scared, but I also felt secure, because my family, quote unquote, hired an attorney for me, Chuck Peruto. So the reason that they hired him is because my sister-in-law, Kelly, her cousin was a bank robber, and the movie Point Blank was about him. And this attorney got him off to I believe he served 3 years, and he was looking at a 30-year sentence. So that is the reason that my family hired him. And he took advantage of them, the money and the vulnerability that we had, our circumstances. I ended up giving him $75,000. He did not like Trump. He would cancel hearings all the time, so I would have to stay in jail longer. So that night, the day after I got his letter, I remember going to sleep, and all of a sudden the U.S. Marshals get me in the middle of the night. And my roommate said, Gina, they're coming to get you. You now have that highfalutin attorney. He's going to get you out. And I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. Like, I'm going home. And I was just so elated. They put chains on me and handcuffs, and they moved me into like a shipping room, like a booking room. And it was transporting me. So they transported me on a bus to San Diego. From San Diego, I was at an airport. I got on Con Air. I was on with a bunch of murderers, killers, scary people. One individual had one eye, and he was telling me how pretty I was, and he was shaking the plane. And the U.S. Marshal said, stop talking to her. And I needed to trust in the Lord at that point. I had nothing else. But at that very moment, I felt like the scum of the earth. I mean, probably a week earlier, I had been in my cell, and I asked for a radio, and I remember listening to the family channel Jay Secular Live was on, and he said that Capitol attack was so disgusting and what is a disgrace to democracy. And I was so humiliated and shocked when I heard that. I just gave my radio back. I'm like, I don't want the radio. I remember getting off the plane and then getting on a bus and going to the next prison. It was a big prison in Grady County. And I remember going to a nurse's station, and I was with all these guys, and they were in black and white stripes, and they were like, what'd you do? And I'm like, well, we were at the Capitol. He goes, oh, we've seen a few people like that. Oh, you guys are getting in some big trouble. And that's all I kept hearing through the whole duration of my stay. So I remember the nurse. It was a male nurse, and he took my temperature, and he did the COVID test. So I remember he tested me for COVID. And then they took me into another room. They gave me a mattress, and I had to drag my mattress from room to room because they couldn't find a cell for me that was away from the guys, and it was a holding cell. So they put me in a small holding cell. They checked me in. They got me all ready. I had to then take my mattress to the detention center with all the women. There was about 60 bunk beds. And all these girls were watching me through the glass, and they're like, the terrorist is coming. She's a terrorist. I remember hearing them say that. And then one's like, oh, there's fresh meat. And I remember one of the girls said she was the terrorist on the TV. So I guess during that time, they proceeded to play clips of the January 6th, and people knew who I was by the news clips and by the news. So then they let me out with all the women. I remember being freezing cold, and one of the girls gave me an extra shirt. I wore a green prison suit with Crocs that were too small. I think her name was Jeannie, and she gave me one of her shirts. And then I met Whitney, and I met Haley, and I remember, I believe it was Joanne. She promised she'd stay in touch with me. She was in there for a blue-collar crime, but she didn't. Anyway, so I started talking to the girls. Within minutes, they're like, Bisignano, COVID. Right as I was getting comfortable in the detention center, it was more like a gymnasium, they called me. And the girls were like, oh my gosh, COVID. So they took me back out, and they said, you have COVID, we have to seclude you. So again, after being in solitary confinement for a month, I'm in solitary confinement again. I remember one of the U.S. Marshals said to me, one of the guards, why are you here? And I said, well, I'm here from the Capitol. And he goes, here in Okie, we don't lack liberals here in Okie. And that gave me some solace there. So that night I went to sleep, and my cell was freezing. There was no ventilation on the windows, and it was during the winter time. And the men, you heard the men screaming loud all night long, so I couldn't sleep. The snow was so heavy over the window, it was freezing. But thank God I still had that extra shirt from one of the inmates. I did beg for an extra blanket, so I ended up having 2 blankets. Shortly after that, one of the inmates ended up flooding his cell and went into my cell, and I couldn't get out of my bunk bed because my cell was filled with water. And I remember looking up and seeing the snow hit the window and saying, Lord, I cannot believe how safe I feel right now. Like in Psalm 91, like I will send my mighty angels to lift you up so you don't scuff your foot upon the stone. I had that moment, I had the ultimate feeling of so much peace and security. It was odd because that had been my second month. I had COVID. I was sick as a dog. I mean, I felt maybe I was hallucinating, but because I was so weak, but I felt so much security and such profound peace. And I knew no matter what, it was going to be a hard road, but I was going to make it at that point. I started to wash my clothes in the sink. I mean, I started to try to order food from the commissary, and my sister was sending me money. So then I remember that this attorney finally decided to have a hearing in my behalf. And Carl Nichols was my judge. And I remember my sister saying, you're going to have your hearing on Friday. And the hearings kept getting postponed. So I felt like it was forever. And I remember that morning they said, Bisignano, you see the judge today. And I was so shocked. And I didn't think there was a chance of me going home. So I went in with the U.S. Marshals and I waited in the room, and it was a video room. And I remember shaking and thinking, how am I going to make bail? I don't have $250,000 more. Like, I can't ask my sister again. Like, I don't know what to do. And so I was sitting in the room waiting to be seen by the judge, crying and so vulnerable and so broken. And I remember one of the U.S. Marshals looked at me and he said, get your Kleenex ready, girl. You're going down for treason. And I just started to cry, and I go, I have a son. I'm a mother. I've never broken the law. I've never been in trouble before. You're wrong. And I started to cry. I even told one of the U.S. Marshals that he did that, and they go, I'll just ignore him. So I remember sitting down in front of the judge. It was me and the judge. And this attorney who was appointed for me, and I go, he looks like a little lemon car salesman. I'm like, why is this man? He did not look like a strong, masculine American man. He just looked like a little highfalutin, short car salesman. Lemons, by the way. Definitely not a Christian, and you could tell that from a mile away. And he said, Your Honor, she drank the Kool-Aid. Now, mind you, he had not had one conversation with me before he spoke with the judge. Never asked me how I felt. Never asked me what I wanted to say. He thought I was such an idiot, and he thought so low of me. He decided to tell the judge, Your Honor, she drank the Kool-Aid. She's going to pack up all her stuff and move to Pennsylvania with her brother, my brother, by the way. I almost fell on the floor. That created so much anxiety, even more anxiety on top of the anxiety I was experiencing. So then I remember the judge saying, Miss Bisignano, and I just looked at him and I cried. And he said, you said we need strong, angry patriots. That's a pretty terrible thing to say, Miss Bisignano. Well, I'm going to let you out on your own accordance. You're going to be on house arrest, and we're going to put you on in-home monitoring. And I remember they didn't want me to get out of jail. And I was so scared because they were treating me as if I was a serial killer. I mean, it was crazy. I looked and I remember feeling relief inside because the judge was so kind looking. He looked like such a fair man. And that's when I knew the Lord had me, because I could tell that this was a God-fearing judge. So I did feel a little relieved. So he then let me out on my own recognizance and called the attorney, no answer. Nobody knew where I was. I didn't have any numbers except for my sister, and my sister said, Gina, we'll see if we can find somebody to come pick you up in Oklahoma. The attorney didn't assist me. They let me out. They were discharging me in the middle of Chickasaw, Oklahoma, with no phone, with sneakers, no coat, my LA clothes, no license. So then I snuck and I called my friend Kenny, and I had the number written down because I didn't memorize any numbers except for my sister and my son. And I said, Kenny, I need help. And he said, Gina, just give me a few minutes. So he went on Facebook and he made a note saying, if there's any patriots out there who want to help my friend Gina, she's being let out of the jail from January 6th and she has nowhere to go. Well, lo and behold, I had somebody waiting outside. She was 4 months or 5 months pregnant, Rachel Trevino. She picked me up. She was amazing, God-fearing, incredible person. She drove me to her home, and I met her whole family. There was goats in the house. There was dogs in the house. They had their rifles on the wall. I mean, it was great. I was still choking with anxiety. I mean, they offered me, I remember they took me and they bought me a Diet Coke when she picked me up on the way back. I loved it. It was the best taste ever. I miss my Diet Coke. So yeah, I went into her house. We had dinner. And I had a little red wine because I was so torn up and so confused. I didn't know what to do next. So the weather was so bad I couldn't get my license. So I ended up being there about 11 days. So about March 15th, I got a ticket to go back to LA. My son picked me up from the airport with a smile. And I remember saying, Lord, I don't want to leave my son. I mean, my son and I are inseparable, and I can't do it. I've got to fight this. So I went home and I got to my house, and my entire salon was in my house. And then half of my stuff was missing. I found out they left some of it by the garbage, and they took my equipment. So half of my salon stuff was all in my apartment. There was roaches everywhere because I guess they didn't change my garbage. It was tough. So I pretty much laid in the dark amongst all my furniture and in my salon probably for about a month. And I wasn't able to get out of my slump. I mean, I had to use the money I saved. I got death threats constantly. People hated me. I couldn't even walk outside because I've been on house arrest. I am on house arrest. I was pretty much treated like garbage, yeah, for a long time. And then I remember Jenna Ryan saying to me, hey, you need to get on the prisoner's record. Well, that was the beginning of me having strength and nursing my way back to my strong self. I started to go on prisoner's record every night for prayer, and I started to get my strength back. And as I started to get my strength back, I had been going to FBI meetings. They were trying to get me to turn and say things. Like, I even said to my attorney, what do you want me to say? I don't have any information. So we took pictures. They wanted me to store my pictures on a disc. He goes, I don't care, make up something. So I was being interrogated by the feds, and they wanted me to have information I didn't have. Nobody was scheming anything. Nobody was planning on going to the Capitol and storming it and trying to take over an election proceeding. That was all fabricated. We went to the Capitol for our voices to be heard, just to speak. Nobody went there for a violent mob riot. After I got stronger, I fired this attorney, and I'm like, I am not turning on Trump. I am not going to cooperate with these feds that are full of crap. I mean, they really wanted me to make things up in order to indict other defendants. And it got to the point where they subpoenaed me to stand up against somebody in a trial, Ed Badalian. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not going. And my attorney said, Gina, if you don't go, he said, you'll go to jail. At the Capitol, January 6th, a few friends of mine from the Donald Trump rallies, the President Trump rallies, they were at January 6th. And we had all talked, the group of people at the rallies, we would say, hey, you guys going to go to Washington? Are you going to go to the Stop the Steal rally? So we all communicated together. Nobody really met anybody there. We all went on our own accord. Ed, DJ, they tried to interrogate me. I met with the feds like 4 times, and they kept asking me for the same information, and I didn't have any information. I didn't witness anything. And they kept asking me, when is the last time you talked to this one? When is the last time you talked to DJ? How do you know him? Well, you have to know him. You're talking to him there. What were you saying to him right there? I was asking him if he was single, actually, a couple guys. It's almost as if they wanted me to fabricate a story to indict these guys. Nobody went there for violence. It was like a party. It was beautiful. People were praying. Then when they shot and killed somebody, that's when people started to get scared, and they were reacting from the emotions of the crowd. During the Capitol attack, quote unquote, and I say that very lightly, they say that DJ tasered a police officer, Fanone, That is why they put so much stress on me and came down so hard on me, because I was in a picture with DJ and Ed. So they associated us as a conspiratorial team. And then when I got home, after I had been incarcerated, all of a sudden, somebody was becoming my best friend. This guy came into my life, Gabe, and he started to act like he knew me and wanted to help me. And the night that the feds raided me, he came in that night. He removed all my liquor, my bong, everything, and he like took over. But I was too weak to fight back. This guy Gabe started to be, and the whole time I found out he was an informant. And then my supposedly friend was calling the feds behind my back and told the feds that I bought a gun to the Capitol because my intentions were to shoot Joe Biden. I mean, this is crazy. What it was much ado about nothing. It was really nothing. It was all fabricated. Then I would go down to the FBI office, and they would sit me in a room for hours and just showing a guy breaking a window. And then they caught me in a video where I said, break a window. Boy, I got blamed for breaking that window.
Window!
Break the window! Break the window! Break the window!
Make sure we had good.
I got squashed.
And I was riled up by the crowd. I was worked up by being in the crowd. I'm not blaming anybody but myself. So I do believe that our election was stolen. And so we had every right to stand up the way we did. But what they did was they created a narrative, the left, to put Trump supporters in a bad light. They overcharged us. I had people turning on me left and right. This girl, Naroshi Lautier, went and stole my Chanel bags when I was in jail and sold them on eBay. I had this other guy, Gabe, pretending like he was my friend the whole time, reporting back to the feds as if there was something to report on. There wasn't. And now, 4 years later, we're going to have our day in the sun. And our redemption is here. President Trump's redemption is here. All you pedophiles out there, all you globalists out there, get ready to go. Get ready to get on a plane and take a trip to Gitmo. Because vengeance is mine, says the Lord, and it looks like it's time. And we are being redeemed right now, and I believe God heard our prayers and he gave us one more chance, one more opportunity, a second chance at America. I really didn't believe that God would allow this. I really thought that it was our time to be chastened because of how many babies they've killed in this country. For that alone is, I think, a reason for God's wrath. So I'm ready right now to stand up for the children and the innocent. But the trafficking, the Diddy situation, the Epstein, everything's coming into fruition right now. And I feel that God is really looking out for his people. And I do feel that because there were so many people praying to the Lord, that's why he put his hand in our lives, in our situation, and gave us a second chance with President Trump. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to hear more about my January 6th experience or my Fedsurrection experience, like and subscribe here.
You are not going to take away our Trumpy bear.